Sarah Porter's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she divided the last piece of bread into 7 pieces. 7 children, 7 hungry mouths, and nothing left after tonight. Then her eldest son burst through the door, snow in his hair, terror in his eyes. "Mama, there's a dead man by the frozen creek." Sarah's blood turned to ice. 4 winters alone. 4 winters of watching her children grow thinner. And now death itself had come knocking at her door. Subscription invitation. Before we continue Sarah's story, I'd love for you to subscribe and follow her journey to the very end. Please leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I'm always amazed to see how far these stories travel. Now let's return to that frozen creek in Montana Territory, 1879. Sarah grabbed her shawl from the peg. Her fingers were trembling, but her voice came out steady. "Show me." Her son Samuel hesitated in the doorway. At 12 years old, he'd become the man of the house 4 winters ago. Too young, far too young. Mama, little Eliza saw him too. She's scared real bad. Sarah found her 8-year-old daughter standing frozen by the woodpile, mittens pressed against her mouth, eyes wide as silver dollars. "Eliza, sweetheart, come inside and wait by the fire." "Is he dead like Papa?" Eliza whispered. The question hit Sarah like a fist to the chest. She remembered too well the morning she'd found Daniel's body. Frozen stiff by the road, eyes open to a sky that didn't care. "I don't know yet, baby. Go inside. Watch your brothers and sisters." Samuel led the way through snow that reached past his knees. 4 years ago, he'd barely come up to her shoulder. Now he stood almost as tall as she did, his young face hardened by too many winters of watching his mother struggle. "How far?" Sarah called, fighting to keep pace. "Past the big cottonwood. Maybe 10 more minutes." 10 minutes in this cold could mean the difference between life and death. Sarah pushed harder, ignoring the fire building in her legs. They found him face down near the frozen creek bank, half buried in white. A tall man in a wool coat torn at the shoulder, soaked with what looked like blood. His horse was nowhere to be seen. Sarah dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her fingers against his neck. A pulse. Faint, but there. "He's alive," she breathed. "Mama, look." Samuel pointed at the snow around the man's body. Boot prints. Not his own. Signs of a struggle. Drag marks leading to where he lay. Someone had brought him here and left him to die. Sarah's gut tightened. A stranger left for dead meant trouble. Whoever did this might come looking to finish the job. But she had 7 children at home. 7 reasons to stay out of other people's business. The man groaned softly. Sarah made her choice. "Help me turn him over." Together they rolled him onto his back. He was a big man, over 6 feet, with the solid build of someone accustomed to hard work. Dark hair matted with blood at his temple, strong jaw beneath several days of beard, lines of suffering etched around his closed eyes. "We can't carry him," Samuel said, his voice small. "Then we drag him." It took nearly an hour. Sarah's arms screamed in protest. Her back became a column of fire. Twice she fell to her knees, gasping, only to push herself up and keep pulling. Samuel never complained, never stopped. The boy grabbed the stranger's arm and hauled with everything he had, teeth gritted, face red with effort. When they finally reached the cabin, chaos greeted them. 5-year-old twins Matthew and Mark were fighting over the last blanket. 9-year-old Ruth was trying to calm baby Hannah, who wouldn't stop crying. 11-year-old James stood guard at the door, with Daniel's old hunting knife in his small hands, and Eliza had built the fire high just as Sarah had taught her. Blankets spread before the hearth. "Is he dead, Mama?" Eliza asked as they wrestled the stranger through the door. "Not if I can help it." "There's a dead man in our house," Matthew shouted. "He ain't dead," Samuel snapped. "Now hush up and help Mama." Sarah barked orders like a general. James, fetch water from the bucket. Ruth, keep Hannah quiet. Eliza, more wood on the fire. Samuel, help me get his boots off. She worked through the night, heated water, cleaned the wound on his head someone had struck him hard enough to split the skin to the bone, spooned warm broth between his cracked lips when he could swallow. The stranger thrashed in fevered dreams, calling out names that meant nothing to Sarah. Elizabeth. His voice broke on the word. Anna, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. A wife. A child. Both lost from the grief in his voice. Sarah recognized that sound. She'd made it herself alone in the barn after Daniel's funeral when the children couldn't hear. Mama. Samuel appeared at her elbow, his face pale in the firelight. What if he's a bad man? Sarah wrung out a cool cloth, placing it on the stranger's burning forehead. Can't know if he's bad if he's dead. Let's keep him alive long enough to find out. What if the men who hurt him come here? Sarah didn't answer. She'd already loaded Daniel's rifle and placed it within arm's reach. On the second day, the fever climbed higher. Sarah used the last of her precious honey to brew sweetened tea, tore up her only spare sheet for fresh bandages. The children watched from their places around the cramped cabin, 7 pairs of eyes tracking her every move. Mama, I'm hungry, little Mark whispered. I know, baby. Soon. But there was no soon. There was barely anything left in the cellar. 3 potatoes she'd been saving, a handful of dried beans, half a jar of preserved apples from last summer, 9 mouths to feed now counting the stranger, and nothing coming in. Samuel found her that evening staring at the empty flour barrel. I can check the snares tomorrow, he offered. Might have caught something. Might have. Mama. Samuel's voice dropped low. Are we gonna make it? Tell me true. Sarah looked at her eldest son, this boy who'd grown up too fast, who carried his father's knife and his father's burdens. I don't know, she said honestly, but I'm gonna fight like hell to make sure we do. On the 3rd morning, the stranger's eyes snapped open. Blue. Vivid blue. Wild with terror. He grabbed Sarah's wrist with surprising strength. They tried to kill me, he rasped. Don't let them find me. Then he collapsed again, hand falling away. Sarah stared at her children who had frozen in place around the small room. Ruth clutched baby Hannah tighter. James's hand dropped to his father's knife. The twins huddled behind Eliza, who watched with eyes too old for her 8 years. Samuel stepped forward, positioning himself between the stranger and his siblings. Who are you, mister? The boy demanded. And who's trying to kill you? The stranger didn't answer. He'd slipped back into fevered darkness. We need to know what we're dealing with, Samuel said, turning to Sarah. Can't protect the little ones if we don't know what's coming. Sarah nodded slowly. Her 12-year-old son was right. They searched the stranger's belongings. A leather wallet empty of money. A pocket watch expensive, engraved with initials, MJW. A letter, water-stained but readable, addressed to the land office in Helena. Samuel read it aloud, stumbling over some of the bigger words. Regarding the acquisition of the North Fork property, water rights, signed Marcus J. Whitfield Cattle Ranch. Sarah's hands went still. The Whitfield Ranch, one of the largest spreads in Montana Territory. Thousands of acres, hundreds of head of cattle, worth more money than Sarah would see in 10 lifetimes. She'd saved a rich man. Mama. Samuel's voice pulled her back. You know that name. Everyone in Cedar Ridge knows that name. Sarah took the letter, folding it carefully. Mr. Whitfield owns half the territory. Then why'd someone leave him to die? That's what we need to find out. Yet, the fever broke on the 4th day. Sarah was changing the bandage on his head when his eyes opened. Clear this time. Alert. Taking in his surroundings with careful assessment. Where am I? His voice came out rough, scraped raw. My cabin, Montana Territory, about 8 miles east of Cedar Ridge. The man Marcus Whitfield tried to sit up. Pain lanced across his face. Easy. Sarah pressed him back down. You took a bad beating. Cracked ribs from what I can tell. Head wound that could have killed you. How long? 4 days and 3 nights. He processed this, his blue eyes never leaving her face. You talked, Sarah continued, keeping her voice neutral. In your fever, Elizabeth, Anna. Something shuddered behind his gaze. A door slamming closed. My wife and daughter, they're dead. Sarah nodded once, accepting the information without pity. Pity was cheap out here. Useless. I'm Sarah Porter. The boy glaring at you from the corner is my eldest Samuel. The others are Ruth, James, Eliza, Matthew, Mark, and the baby is Hannah. She wrung out the cloth and set it aside. Now, who are you and who wants you dead? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Direct. I appreciate that. Got no time for dancing around, mister. You brought trouble to my door. I got 7 children depending on me. I got a right to know what kind of trouble. Marcus Whitfield, ma'am. I own the Whitfield Ranch about 30 miles north. He shifted carefully, wincing. Was riding to the land office in Helena. Papers to file for a property dispute. Prime grazing land. Water rights. His jaw tightened. 3 men jumped me on the road. Took my horse, my documents. Left me in the snow. Any idea who sent them? Cornelius Blackwood. Sarah's blood went cold. Everyone in Cedar Ridge knew that name too. Blackwood owned the railroad, the bank, half the businesses in town, and he'd been buying up land throughout the territory, sometimes fair, often not. Rumors of intimidation, foreclosures, people who opposed him having accidents. Blackwood's been after the North Fork for years, Marcus continued. I always refused to sell. Guess he decided to take it another way. By killing you. Man like Blackwood, death's just another business transaction. Sarah stood moving to check on baby Hannah, who'd started fussing in Ruth's arms. Her mind was racing. Blackwood. The same name whispered around her husband's death 4 years ago. Daniel had refused to sell their horses to Blackwood's railroad company. Said they treated animals like machines, worked them to death. 2 weeks later, Daniel was dead. Training accident, the foreman said. Horse spooked, threw him against the corral fence. Sarah had never believed it. Your people must be looking for you, she said carefully, not turning around. Maybe. Or maybe they think I'm dead. Marcus's voice carried a bitter edge. Easier for some that way. Self-pity won't heal you faster, Mr. Whitfield. Something flickered in his eyes when she turned back. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. No, ma'am. I reckon it won't. Little Eliza approached the bed that evening, clutching her rag doll. Mr. Marcus, are you hungry? Sarah tensed, ready to pull her daughter back. But Marcus's expression had softened in a way she hadn't expected from a man with such hard eyes. I could eat, Miss Eliza. Mama's stew is real good. She puts in meat when we have it. Eliza's face fell. We don't have any now, though. Whatever your mama makes, I'm grateful for. Eliza studied him with the fearless curiosity of childhood. Did the bad men hurt you? They did. Are they gonna come here? Marcus glanced at Sarah over the child's head. No, he said firmly. They're not going to hurt you or your family. I won't let them. You can't even stand up, Samuel said flatly from his position by the door. How you gonna protect anybody? Samuel. Sarah's voice held a warning, but Marcus raised his hand. No, ma'am. He's right to ask. He addressed Samuel directly, man to man. Right now, I can't do much of anything, but I won't always be flat on my back, and I always pay my debts. Words are cheap, mister. They are. That's why I back mine with action. Marcus held the boy's gaze. Your mama saved my life when she didn't have to, when it probably wasn't safe to. That's a debt I mean to repay. Samuel considered this for a long moment. His hand rested on his father's knife tucked in his belt. Pa used to say a man's word is only as good as his deeds. Your pa was right. He was the best man I knew. Samuel's voice cracked slightly. And he's dead now. So don't go making promises you can't keep. He turned and climbed up to the loft where the boys slept, leaving silence in his wake. Marcus looked at Sarah. I apologize for... Don't. Sarah cut him off. Boy's protecting his family. That's exactly what he should be doing. She paused. He reminds me of his father. Your husband? Daniel. Dead 4 winters now. Training accident, they said. Sarah's voice went flat. Horse spooked. You don't believe that? Sarah met his eyes. Mr. Whitfield, I don't believe much of anything anymore. Except that this world takes, and we either survive or we don't. The next morning brought another blow. Samuel checked the snares before dawn and came back empty-handed. The cold had driven the rabbits deep into their burrows, nothing moving in the frozen wilderness. Sarah counted what remained in the cellar. 3 potatoes, a handful of beans, the half jar of apples, 9 mouths, maybe 2 days of food if she stretched it thin enough to barely count. Mama! Ruth appeared at her elbow, baby Hannah on her hip. At 9 years old, Ruth had become a second mother to the little ones. Hannah's hungry. She won't stop crying. Sarah closed her eyes, drew a breath. Give her some of the apple water, just enough to settle her stomach. But that's... I know what it is. Do it anyway. Ruth nodded and slipped away. Sarah leaned against the cellar wall, pressing her palms against her eyes. Her chest felt tight. Her throat burned. 4 years she'd kept these children alive. 4 winters of scraping and fighting and going without, so they could have a little more. And now, when the end finally seemed close enough to touch, she'd brought another mouth into the house. A stranger's mouth. A rich man's mouth. The cruel irony wasn't lost on her. Mrs. Porter. She jumped. Marcus stood in the cellar doorway, one hand braced against the frame for support. He shouldn't be out of bed, could barely stand. You should be resting. I heard the boy come back empty-handed. Marcus's blue eyes took in the nearly bare shelves. The 3 potatoes, the handful of beans. You're running out of food. That's not your concern. The hell it isn't. He stepped closer, swaying slightly. You've been feeding me for 4 days, using your medicine, your bandages. His voice roughened. I'm not blind, Mrs. Porter. I see how thin your children are. I see Ruth giving her portion to the little ones when she thinks no one's watching. Sarah's jaw tightened. We'll manage. How? Same way we always have, by not giving up. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his shirt and pulled out a small leather pouch she hadn't noticed before. My attackers took my wallet, my documents. They didn't find this. He pressed it into her hands. Sarah opened it. Inside glinted gold coins, more money than she'd seen in years. I can't. You can. You will. Marcus's hand closed over hers, pushing the pouch back when she tried to return it. Your son's right. Words are cheap. So let me show you what my word is worth. Sarah stared at the gold. Enough to buy flour meat coffee medicine. Enough to last them through winter and into spring. This doesn't make us square, she said finally. No, ma'am, it doesn't. This is just a start. That afternoon, Samuel rode their old draft horse into Cedar Ridge. Marcus's gold, hidden in his boot. Sarah waited by the window, baby Hannah in her arms watching the road. The other children sensed her tension. Even the twins stopped their usual bickering, sitting quiet by the fire. Eliza helped Ruth prepare for the supplies they hoped Samuel would bring. James kept watch at the back window, his father's knife in his belt. Marcus sat in the chair Sarah had dragged near the fire, still too weak to do much else. But his eyes were alert, tracking every sound, every movement. Tell me about your husband, he said quietly. Sarah didn't turn from the window. Why? Because you saved my life. Because your son carries his father's knife like it's sacred. Because I see his face in all 7 of your children. You trying to make conversation, Mr. Whitfield? I'm trying to understand the woman who dragged me out of the snow instead of leaving me to die. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Hannah fussed in her arms and she rocked gently automatically. Daniel was a horse trainer. Best in the territory, people said. Could gentle the wildest bronc turn a range Mustang into a working horse? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. He could talk to them, he said. And they talked back. How'd you meet? He came to my father's farm looking to buy a mare, saw me instead. The smile faded. We were married 3 months later. Samuel was born the next spring. And Blackwood? Sarah's arms tightened around Hannah. Blackwood came through 4 years ago. His railroad needed horses, lots of them. He offered to buy Daniel's entire stock. Your husband refused. Said Blackwood worked his animals to death. Said he wouldn't sell to a man who treated creatures like they were disposable. Sarah finally turned from the window. 2 weeks later, Daniel was dead. Training accident, they said. But you don't believe it. I believe Daniel had been training horses since he was younger than Samuel. I believe he knew every mood, every twitch, every warning sign. Her voice hardened. I believe someone spooked that horse deliberately. And I believe Blackwood's men stood by and watched my husband die. Marcus absorbed this in silence. I can't prove it, Sarah continued. Can't do anything about it, even if I could prove it. Just a widow with 7 children and no power against a man like Blackwood. She lifted her chin. But I remember. And I teach my children to remember. That's why Samuel doesn't trust me. Samuel doesn't trust anyone, can't afford to. Sarah moved to check on the fire laying Hannah in Ruth's arms. This world taught him young that people let you down, that promises don't mean much when you're starving and alone. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I'm going to prove him wrong, he said finally. Sarah looked at him. This stranger who'd stumbled into their lives half dead, who'd given them gold without being asked, who looked at her children with something like hunger in his eyes, not threatening but starving. The hunger of a man who'd lost everything. That's a dangerous promise, Mr. Whitfield. I know. He held her gaze. I'm making it anyway. Samuel returned at dusk. The wagon was loaded with supplies. Flour, salt, sugar, coffee, dried meat beans, a bolt of cloth for patching clothes. Medicine. A bag of peppermints that made the twins' eyes go wide. But Samuel's face was dark as he unloaded the goods. What happened? Sarah asked, keeping her voice low so the little ones wouldn't hear. They know he's here. Samuel jerked his chin toward Marcus. Whole town's talking. The widow Porter harboring a strange man. Living in sin, the preacher's wife called it. His young face twisted with fury. Mrs. Blackwood told me I should be ashamed. Said decent folk don't associate with my kind anymore. Sarah's stomach dropped. They sold you the supplies, though. Only because I paid double. Samuel dug in his pocket and pulled out several gold coins. Wouldn't give me change either. Said it was a tax for dealing with undesirables. From across the room, Marcus spoke. I'm sorry. You should be. Samuel's voice was hard. We had it hard before. Now we got the whole town against us, because of you. Samuel, Sarah started. He's right. Marcus pushed himself to his feet, swaying but determined. I've made things worse for your family, and I'm going to fix it. How? Samuel demanded. You can barely walk. You got no horse, no men, no way to fight Blackwood. I'll find a way. Words again, just words. Then let me show you. Marcus took a step toward the boy, then another. Your mama told me about your pa, about how Blackwood's men probably killed him, about how nobody did anything because Blackwood owns this town. Samuel's hand dropped to his father's knife. Don't talk about my pa. I'm not talking about him. I'm making you a promise. Marcus stopped close enough that Samuel had to look up to meet his eyes. When I'm healed, when I'm back on my feet, I'm going to find out the truth about what happened to Daniel Porter. And if Blackwood was behind it, I'm going to see him pay. Why, you didn't even know him? Because your mother saved my life. Because Blackwood left me to die in the snow the same way he left your father to die. Because... Marcus's voice roughened. Because I had a daughter once. She'd be about Eliza's age now if she'd lived. And I couldn't save her. But maybe I can help save this family instead. Silence filled the cabin. Samuel stared at Marcus for a long moment. His jaw worked like he was chewing on words too big to swallow. Then slowly he held out his hand. You break that promise, I'll kill you myself. Marcus took the boy's hand and shook it. Fair enough. That night after the children were asleep, Sarah found Marcus on the porch, despite the bitter cold. She'd expected him to collapse hours ago, but stubborn determination kept him upright. You'll freeze out here. Maybe that's fitting. His breath misted in the darkness. I've been cold for 6 years, since Elizabeth and Anna died. Just didn't realize it until now. Sarah sat beside him, not touching but close. How did you lose them? Fire. The word came out hollow. I was away on business. Cattle drive to Denver. Someone set fire to the house while I was gone. Marcus stared at the stars. They said Elizabeth tried to save Anna. Found them together in the nursery, holding each other. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Doesn't change anything. He turned to look at her. I spent 6 years blaming myself. Building my ranch bigger and bigger like that would fill the hole they left. Pushing everyone away because caring about anyone felt like betraying them. And now I'm sitting on a widow's porch owing my life to a woman who had every reason to leave me in the snow. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Elizabeth would have liked you. She'd say you have spine. Spine doesn't keep children fed. No, but it keeps you fighting when anyone else would have given up. Sarah was quiet for a moment. The wind carried the sound of the creek, frozen now, waiting for spring. Daniel used to say I was too stubborn for my own good. Was he right? Probably. She pulled her shawl tighter. I keep going because I don't know how to stop. Because those 7 children in there are depending on me. Because if I fall apart, they fall apart too. You don't have to carry it alone. Sarah laughed, the sound bitter. Who's going to help the town that just called me a whore for taking in a dying man? The neighbors who stopped visiting after Daniel died because a widow with 7 children is too much trouble. Me. She turned to stare at him. I mean it, Marcus said. When I'm healed, I'm going to help you. Not charity. You've made it clear you don't want that. Partnership. You've got horse training in your blood from your husband. I've got land that needs good horses. We could... You don't even know me. I know you divided your last bread 7 ways to feed your children. I know you dragged a stranger through the snow rather than let him die. I know you've survived 4 years alone when most people would have given up after 1. Marcus's blue eyes held hers. I know enough. Sarah's throat tightened. That's a dangerous road you're walking, Mr. Whitfield. Call me Marcus. That's an even more dangerous road. Maybe. He reached out his hand, hovering near hers, but not quite touching. But I've spent 6 years playing it safe. Look where that got me, beaten half to death and left in the snow. His voice dropped. I'd rather take a dangerous road with someone worth walking beside. The wind picked up, carrying snowflakes that sparkled in the starlight. Sarah didn't take his hand. Wasn't ready for that. But she didn't move away either. We'll see, she said finally. Talk is cheap. Show me who you are when spring comes. Is that a challenge, Mrs. Porter? It's a warning, Mr. Whitfield. She stood brushing snow from her skirts. Don't make promises you can't keep. My children have had enough disappointment. She went inside without looking back. But that night, lying in her narrow bed listening to the wind and the soft breathing of her children, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. Fragile as new ice. Dangerous as spring flood. But there. And for the first time since Daniel died, she didn't try to crush it. Dawn brought trouble. Sarah was feeding baby Hannah when Samuel burst through the door, his face white as the snow on his shoulders. Riders coming, 5 of them. And Mama? He swallowed hard. They're wearing Blackwood's brand. Marcus was on his feet, instantly swaying, but alert. Where's my rifle? You don't have one, and you can barely stand. Then give me your father's. Samuel hesitated, his hand on the weapon. Boy. Marcus's voice was steady despite the situation. I know what I'm asking. But right now I'm the only one who knows how these men think. Let me help. The thunder of hoofbeats grew louder. Sarah made the decision. Give it to him. Samuel, take the children to the root cellar. Ruth, you're in charge. Keep them quiet no matter what you hear. Mama? Eliza started. Now, baby, go. Ruth herded the younger children toward the cellar, her face pale but determined. Samuel ushered them down, then turned back. I'm staying. Samuel. I'm staying. His voice cracked between boy and man. Pa would have stayed, and I'm not leaving you alone with him. Sarah looked at her son, at Marcus, at the door that shook as someone pounded on it from outside. Then get behind me, both of you. She crossed to the door, straightening her spine, lifting her chin. 4 years of surviving alone had taught her that fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. She opened the door. 5 men on horseback, rough-looking, armed, wearing the distinctive black armbands of Blackwood's enforcers. The leader sat slightly ahead, a thin man with dead eyes and a scar across his lips. Mrs. Porter. He touched the brim of his hat, the gesture somehow mocking. We're looking for someone. Heard you might know where to find him. Lot of trouble to ride 8 miles in the snow for a social call. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Blackwood is concerned about a friend of his, Marcus Whitfield. Went missing about a week ago. Terrible tragedy if something happened to him. Don't know any Whitfield? No. The man leaned forward in his saddle. That's strange, because the general store says your boy paid for supplies with gold coins yesterday. Whitfield gold from the markings. His dead eyes scanned the cabin behind her. Mr. Blackwood would hate for anything unfortunate to happen to a widow and her children. Winter's dangerous. Accidents happen. Sarah felt Samuel tense behind her. Felt Marcus's presence coiled and ready despite his injuries. Is that a threat? Just an observation, ma'am. The man straightened. Mr. Blackwood will be sorry to hear you can't help. He'll be even sorrier if he finds out you lied. He pulled his horse around and the others followed. But at the edge of the clearing he turned back. Pretty little place you have here, Mrs. Porter. Shame if something happened to it. They rode away, disappearing into the snow. Sarah didn't move until the sound of hoofbeats faded completely. Then her knees buckled. Marcus caught her. They'll be back, he said quietly. I know. Blackwood won't stop until he knows I'm dead or gone. I know that too. Sarah straightened, pulling away from his support. She looked at Samuel, who stood pale but steady, his father's knife in his belt, his eyes burning with a fury too large for his young face. Then we'd better be ready when they come back, she said. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Yes, ma'am. I reckon we better. The riders had been gone less than an hour when Marcus collapsed. Sarah caught him before he hit the floor, her arms straining against his weight. Samuel rushed to help, and together they dragged him back to the bed. Fool man, Sarah muttered, pressing her hand against his forehead. The fever was climbing again. Tore your stitches open standing there playing hero? Marcus's eyes fluttered. Had to. Had to nothing. You nearly got yourself killed twice in 1 week. Would have been worth it. His hand found hers grip, weak but insistent. Protecting you. Sarah pulled away, her cheeks burning. Save your strength for healing. We're going to need you on your feet when Blackwood's men come back. She worked through the morning restitching his wound while the children watched from their places around the cabin. Ruth kept baby Hannah quiet. The twins huddled together by the fire. James stood guard at the window, his young face set in hard lines, and Samuel paced like a caged animal. We should leave, he said for the 3rd time. Pack what we can, head for Helena. My uncle's there. He'd take us in. Your uncle hasn't written in 2 years. Last I heard, he was drinking himself to death. Sarah tied off the final stitch. We're not running. Then what? Wait for them to come back and burn us out. We prepare. Samuel stopped pacing. How? Sarah looked at Marcus unconscious, now his breathing shallow but steady. Then at her son, this boy who'd become a man too young. Your father taught you to shoot. Yes, ma'am. Then teach your brothers. James first, then Matthew when he's ready. Samuel's eyes widened. Matthew's only 5. I know how old my own son is. Sarah's voice came out harder than she intended. She softened it with effort. I'm not asking him to fight. I'm asking him to know how to protect himself if the worst happens. Mama, Ruth's voice trembled from across the room. Are we going to die? 7 pairs of eyes fixed on Sarah. 7 children waiting for her to have the answers. She crossed to Ruth, kneeling to look her daughter in the eye. No, baby, we're not going to die. We're going to fight. But there's only us. Us is enough. Sarah touched Ruth's cheek. Your father used to say that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and standing your ground anyway. Can you do that for me? Ruth swallowed hard, then nodded. Good girl. Sarah stood addressing all of them. Now, Samuel, take James and start on those shooting lessons. Ruth, you're in charge of the little ones. Keep them inside. Keep them quiet. Eliza? I want to help fight. Sarah turned to her 8-year-old daughter who stood with her small fists clenched, her chin lifted in defiance. You will help by being brave for your brothers and sister, by not panicking when things get hard. Sarah knelt again, meeting Eliza's fierce gaze. The bravest thing isn't always holding a gun. Sometimes it's holding your family together when everything's falling apart. Can you do that? Eliza considered this with the gravity of a child forced to grow up too fast. Yes, Mama. Then that's your job, and it's the most important one. The day passed in tense preparation. Samuel took James behind the barn, and soon the crack of rifle fire echoed across the snow. Sarah sorted their supplies, calculating how long they could hold out if they were trapped. And Marcus slept, his body fighting to heal what violence had broken. Near dusk, Sarah found herself standing at the window watching the road, waiting for riders who might come at any moment. You should rest, she startled. Marcus had pushed himself upright, his face pale but his eyes clear. You should stay in bed. Did that already. Got bored. He swung his legs over the edge, grimacing. Besides, heard shooting. Figured I should see what your boy's made of. He's made of his father. That's what I'm hoping. Marcus stood, one hand braced against the wall. Help me outside. Sarah should have refused. Should have pushed him back into bed and told him to stop being a fool. Instead, she offered her arm. They made their way to the back of the cabin where Samuel was coaching James through reloading the rifle. The 11-year-old's hands shook, but his jaw was set with determination. Steady now, Samuel said. Don't rush. A rushed shot is a missed shot. Pa used to say that, James whispered. Pa was right about most things. Samuel glanced up as Sarah and Marcus approached. His expression flickered suspicion, assessment, something that might have been grudging respect. Marcus released Sarah's arm and limped forward. Mind if I watch? Samuel's eyes narrowed. You know guns. Spent 4 years in the war, Confederate cavalry. Marcus settled onto a fence post, his breathing labored, but his attention sharp. Your form's good. Who taught you? My father. He taught you well. Marcus nodded toward James. Boy's got potential too. Steady hands when he's not overthinking. Samuel studied Marcus for a long moment. Then slowly he handed the rifle to James. Show him. James looked between his brother and the stranger, uncertain. Go on, Samuel said. Let's see what Mr. Whitfield thinks he knows. James raised the rifle, sighted down the barrel, at the tin can Samuel had set on a fence post 50 yards away. His hands trembled. "Breathe," Marcus said quietly. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. Let the gun become part of your arm." James drew a shaky breath. "Now, don't think about hitting the target. Think about the space between you and it. See the bullet's path before you pull the trigger." James squeezed. The can flew off the post. "I hit it?" James's face split into a grin. "Samuel, I hit it?" "You did good." Samuel's voice was grudging, but Sarah caught the pride underneath. He turned to Marcus. "Where'd you learn to teach like that?" "Taught my ranch hands. 50 men, most of them couldn't shoot straight when they started." Marcus pushed himself upright, swaying slightly. "Your brother's got talent. Give him a few months, he'll outshoot you." "Nobody outshoots me." "Then you better practice harder." Bye. Something passed between them. Not friendship, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the cold. That night, after the children were asleep, Marcus found Sarah in the kitchen staring at the map Daniel had drawn years ago. "Planning our defense?" he asked. "Planning how to keep 7 children alive when armed men come to kill us." Marcus moved to stand beside her close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Show me." Sarah traced the lines on the map. "Only 2 ways to approach the cabin. The main road from the east and the old logging trail from the north, both narrow, both with good cover for defenders." "You've thought about this before." "I've thought about a lot of things. After Daniel died, I had nothing but time to think." Sarah's fingers stopped at the creek. "The problem is here. If they ford the creek south of us, they can come up through the woods, flank us while we're watching the road. Then we don't let them ford the creek." Sarah looked at him. "How?" Marcus studied the map, his brow furrowed. "You've got 1 rifle. How much ammunition? Maybe 30 rounds. That's not enough for a siege, but it might be enough for an ambush. I'm not leaving my children to go hunt Blackwood's men. I'm not asking you to." Marcus met her eyes. "I'm saying we pick our ground, make them come to us on our terms. And when they do..." His jaw tightened. "We make sure they don't come back." Sarah held his gaze. "You're talking about killing men. I'm talking about protecting your family. If that means killing, then yes. And you think you're capable of that, half-healed, barely able to stand?" "Mrs. Porter." Marcus's voice dropped low. "I've killed 37 men in my life, 34 in the war, 3 after. Every single one of them haunts my sleep." He paused. "But I'd kill 37 more if it meant keeping your children safe." Sarah's breath caught. "Why?" she whispered. "You don't know us. We're nothing to you." "You're not nothing." Marcus reached out his hand, hovering near her face but not touching. "You're the first thing that's felt real in 6 years." The fire crackled. Wind moaned against the windows. Sarah should have stepped back, should have reminded him that she was a widow, that he was a stranger, that this was madness. Instead, she stood frozen, caught in his gaze. "Mama," she jerked away. Samuel stood in the doorway of the loft, his eyes moving between them with an expression she couldn't read. "Go back to sleep, Samuel." "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about tomorrow." "Nothing's happening tomorrow." "Something's always happening." Samuel descended the ladder, moving to stand beside his mother. "Mr. Whitfield, you meant what you said earlier, about teaching us to fight." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then start tomorrow. Not just shooting. Everything. How to track, how to hide, how to survive if..." Samuel's voice cracked. "If something happens to Mama..." "Samuel," Sarah gripped her son's shoulder. "Nothing's going to happen to me. You don't know that. Pa didn't think anything would happen to him either." The words hung in the air, brutal and true. Marcus knelt, ignoring the pain the movement cost him, putting himself at eye level with the boy. Your mother's right. Nothing's going to happen to her. You know why. Samuel's jaw tightened. Why? Because she's got you. And James and Ruth and all the rest. And now she's got me. Marcus held out his hand. I made you a promise, Samuel. I intend to keep it. But I'm going to need your help. Samuel looked at the outstretched hand, at his mother, at the map on the table with its lines and arrows pointing toward danger. He took Marcus's hand. What do you need me to do? Sarah watched her son shake hands with this stranger who had stumbled into their lives and felt something shift in the fabric of her world. Not everything. Not yet. But something. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus healed faster than he had any right to, driving himself out of bed each morning despite Sarah's protests. He worked with Samuel and James on shooting on tracking, on reading the land for signs of approaching riders. He carved wooden swords for the twins, teaching them basic defense through games that made them giggle instead of fear. He sat with Ruth while she fed baby Hannah, telling stories of his ranch, of the horses he raised, of a life so different from theirs, it might as well have been a fairy tale. And he watched Eliza with eyes that held too much grief. She reminds you of her, Sarah said one evening, finding him on the porch as Eliza's laughter drifted through the window. Your daughter. Marcus didn't deny it. Anna would have been 8 this spring. Same red hair, same stubborn chin. He paused. Same way of looking at the world, like it owes her an explanation. Eliza's been that way since she could talk. Drove Daniel crazy. Sarah smiled at the memory. He used to say she'd either grow up to be president or get herself hanged for sass. Sounds about right. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. Can I ask you something? Sarah said finally. Anything. The fire that killed your wife and daughter. You said someone set it. Marcus went still. Did you ever find out who? I have my suspicions. His voice came out flat, controlled. A man named Cornelius Blackwood had made offers on my land. I refused. 3 months later, my family was dead. Sarah's blood went cold. Blackwood. He was in Helena at the time. 50 witnesses put him at a dinner party while my house burned. Marcus's hands clenched on the porch railing. But I know it was him. Just like I know he's behind what happened to your husband. Just like I know he won't stop until he owns every acre in this territory. And everyone who opposed him is dead. Then why haven't you killed him? Marcus laughed bitterly. You think I haven't tried? I've spent 6 years gathering evidence. 6 years trying to find proof. 6 years watching him buy judges, bribe sheriffs, silence witnesses. He turned to face her. Blackwood isn't a man, Mrs. Porter. He's a machine, and machines don't stop until someone breaks them. So break him. Marcus searched her face. You make it sound simple. Nothing's simple, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Sarah stepped closer, lowering her voice. You've got money. You've got influence. You've got a name that carries weight. Use them. I've tried. Then try harder. Sarah grabbed his arm, forcing him to meet her eyes. You want to honor your wife, your daughter. Then stop hiding on your ranch and start fighting, not with guns, with everything Blackwood can't buy. You don't understand what he's capable of. I understand better than you think. I've spent 4 years watching my children go hungry while Blackwood bought up half the territory. I've spent 4 years knowing the man who killed my husband walks free because no one has the courage to stand against him. Sarah's voice shook with fury she'd kept buried for too long. You want to protect this family? Then stop being afraid of him and start being the man your wife thought you were. Marcus flinched like she'd slapped him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus reached up and covered her hand with his own. You're right, he said quietly. I've been hiding. Telling myself I was building something honoring their memory. But really, I was just running away. Then stop running. I don't know if I can. You can. Sarah turned her hand, lacing her fingers through his. The intimacy of the gesture surprised her, but she didn't pull away. You're already stronger than you know. You just forgot how to use it. Marcus's thumb traced circles on her palm. How do you do that? Do what? Make me believe things I'd given up believing. Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm a mother of 7. I've had practice with stubborn cases. He laughed a real laugh, warm and unexpected. Mrs. Porter, you are truly something. Sarah. He paused. What? My name is Sarah. If we're going to fight Blackwood together, you might as well use it. Marcus smiled, and something in his eyes shifted. Something that made Sarah's heart beat faster than she wanted to admit. Sarah, he repeated like he was tasting the word. I like that. Don't get used to it. I'm still not sure I trust you. Fair enough. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. But I intend to earn it. The moment shattered with the sound of hoofbeats. Sarah pulled away, her heart lurching into her throat. Marcus was already moving, ignoring his half-healed wounds, grabbing the rifle from its place by the door. Samuel, Sarah called. Get the children to the cellar, now. Her son appeared on the loft ladder, already in motion. Within seconds, he was herding his siblings toward the trapdoor, his father's knife in his belt, his young face set with determination. Ruth, take Hannah. James, help Matthew. Move, move, move. Mama, I'm scared, Eliza whimpered. I know, baby. Go with your brother. It's going to be okay. But as Sarah turned to face the door, rifle in hand, she knew it might not be okay at all. The riders emerged from the darkness. Not 5 this time. 12. And leading them was a man Sarah had never seen before, but recognized instantly from descriptions. Heavy-set, expensively dressed despite the rough journey. Cold eyes in a fleshy face. Cornelius Blackwood himself. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. Mrs. Porter. Blackwood's voice carried easily across the clearing, smooth as oiled leather. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. You're trespassing on my land. Ah, yes. Your land. Blackwood dismounted with surprising grace for a man his size. That's actually what I came to discuss. You see, I've recently acquired the mortgage on this property. Seems the previous holder was eager to sell. Sarah's stomach dropped. There is no mortgage. Daniel paid cash. Did he? My records show otherwise. Blackwood reached into his coat, producing a folded document. According to this, your husband borrowed heavily against the property 3 years ago. Failed to make payments. The debt has compounded. He smiled, showing too many teeth. You owe me quite a sum, Mrs. Porter. More than this little farm is worth, I'm afraid. That document is a forgery. Is it? Perhaps we should let a judge decide. Blackwood's smile widened. Of course the territorial judge is a personal friend. I'm sure he'd be happy to review the evidence. You son of a... Careful, Mrs. Porter. Language like that isn't becoming of a lady. Blackwood's eyes moved past her, scanning the cabin. Speaking of unbecoming behavior, I understand you've been entertaining a guest. A man named Whitfield. Injured, I believe. Perhaps confused about his circumstances. I don't know what you're talking about. No, that's strange. Because my men tell me they saw him here just last week. Blackwood stepped closer, his expensive boots crunching in the snow. I'm concerned about my friend Marcus, Mrs. Porter. He went missing recently, and I fear something terrible may have happened to him. The cabin door opened. Marcus stepped out, rifle leveled at Blackwood's chest. Nothing terrible happened to me, Cornelius. Just found out who my real friends are. Blackwood's smile didn't waver. Marcus. What a relief. We've been so worried. I'll bet you have. There seems to be some misunderstanding. My men tell me you were attacked on the road. Terrible business. We've been searching for you everywhere. Your men are the ones who attacked me. Marcus's voice was cold as the snow beneath their feet. Left me to die in the creek bed about 8 miles east of here. Would have succeeded too if this woman hadn't dragged me out of the snow. Marcus, surely you're confused. The head wound. I know exactly what happened, and I know why. Marcus stepped forward, and 2 of Blackwood's men reached for their guns. Call off your dogs, Cornelius, unless you want this to get messy. Blackwood raised a hand, and his men relaxed. There's no need for violence. We're all friends here. We've never been friends, and after what you did to my family, we never will be. Something flickered in Blackwood's eyes, the first crack in his smooth facade. I don't know what you think I did. You know exactly what you did. Elizabeth and Anna. The fire. Marcus's voice shook with barely contained rage. I couldn't prove it then, but I will now. Blackwood studied Marcus for a long moment. Then he laughed. My dear boy, you've clearly suffered more than we realized. The ravings of a sick man hardly constitute evidence. He turned to Sarah, his smile back in place. Mrs. Porter, I believe your guest is unwell. Perhaps he should return to his own property for proper medical care. Mr. Whitfield stays as long as he wants. I see. Blackwood's eyes went cold. Then perhaps we should discuss the terms of your mortgage another time, when you've had a chance to consider your options. My only option is telling you to get off my land. For now. Blackwood remounted his horse, his men falling into formation around him. But Mrs. Porter, I'd encourage you to reconsider your position. Winter is long. Accidents happen, and a widow with 7 children. He shook his head sadly. It would be tragic if something were to happen before spring. He pulled his horse around. Oh, and Marcus, Blackwood called over his shoulder. I'll be seeing you soon. We have unfinished business. They rode away into the darkness. Sarah didn't realize she was shaking until Marcus put his hand on her arm. He's gone. For now. Her voice came out strangled. He'll be back. Yes, he will. She turned to face him and saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. But beneath it was something else. Determination. Then we'd better be ready, she said. Marcus nodded. We'd better be ready. The trapdoor creaked open, and 7 frightened faces peered up from the cellar. Sarah forced a smile she didn't feel. It's okay, babies. They're gone. Samuel was the last to emerge, his father's knife still in his hand. That was him, wasn't it, Blackwood? The man who killed Pa. Sarah couldn't lie to her son. Not anymore. Yes? Samuel's jaw tightened. Then I'm going to kill him. No! Sarah grabbed her son's shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. You're going to stay alive. You're going to help me keep your brothers and sisters alive, and when the time comes, we're going to make Blackwood pay. But not with more death, with justice. Justice. Samuel's voice cracked. There's no justice for people like us. Only survival. Then we survive. Together. Sarah pulled him into a fierce embrace. Promise me, Samuel. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. Samuel was silent for a long moment. I promise, he said finally. For now. It wasn't the promise Sarah wanted, but it was the only one she was going to get. The next morning, Sarah woke to find Marcus already dressed and packing a saddlebag. What are you doing? Going back to my ranch. He didn't look at her. I've put you in enough danger. Blackwood's coming for me, and if I stay, he'll burn this place to the ground to get to me. If you leave, he'll burn it anyway. Maybe not. Maybe without me here. He already has a forged mortgage, Marcus. He doesn't need you as an excuse. Sarah crossed to him, grabbing his arm. You leave now and he wins. We both lose everything. I can't protect you from my own ranch. Then don't protect me. Fight beside me. Marcus finally met her eyes. The pain there was raw, desperate. Sarah, I've already lost one family. I can't. You won't. You don't know that. No. I don't. Sarah's voice softened. But I know that running doesn't save anyone. I know that hiding just delays the inevitable. And I know... She hesitated, then pushed forward. I know I don't want you to leave. Marcus went still. What did you say? Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she didn't look away. I said I don't want you to leave. These past 2 weeks, you've become... She struggled for words. The children trust you. Samuel respects you. Even I've started to... She stopped herself. Started to what? Marcus asked softly. Don't make me say it. Sarah. I've started to rely on you. The admission felt like pulling teeth. I've started to believe that maybe I don't have to do this alone. That maybe there's someone who could... Her voice broke. Could stay. Marcus reached up, cupping her face in his hands. I'm not Daniel, he said quietly. I can never be him. I'm not asking you to be. Then what are you asking? Sarah looked at this man who had stumbled into her life half dead and somehow become indispensable, who had taught her sons to shoot and her daughters to laugh, who had made her feel for the first time in 4 years like she wasn't completely alone. I'm asking you to stay, she whispered. Not forever. Not as anything more than what we are. Just stay. Help me fight. Help me keep my children safe. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he kissed her. It wasn't passionate, wasn't demanding. Just his lips against hers, soft and warm and gentle. A promise without words. When he pulled back, Sarah's heart was racing. I'll stay, Marcus said, for as long as you'll have me. Even knowing what's coming. Especially knowing what's coming. He smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it reached his eyes. Besides, I promised your son I'd help him outshoot you. Can't break my word. Sarah laughed despite herself. Nobody outshoots me. Then you'd better practice harder. She hit his arm, but she was smiling. And somewhere in her chest, beneath the fear and the uncertainty and the grief she still carried, that tiny ember of hope burned a little brighter. 3 days later, they got word from town. Samuel had ridden in for supplies against Sarah's better judgment and returned with news that made her blood run cold. The marshal's coming, he said, his face ashen. Blackwood filed papers. Says you've been harboring a fugitive. A fugitive? Sarah stared at her son. Marcus isn't... They're saying he murdered someone. A man named Victor Kane. Samuel swallowed hard. Blackwood's right-hand man, found dead on the road to Helena 3 weeks ago. Marcus went white. Kane. He was one of the men who attacked me. Blackwood's claiming you killed him before the attack, that his men were trying to bring you to justice when you escaped. Samuel's voice shook. Mama, if the marshal takes him, they'll hang him, Sarah finished. Without a trial. Blackwood owns the courts. Then we don't let them take him. Everyone turned. Samuel stood in the doorway, his father's knife in his belt, his young face set with a determination that made him look twice his age. We hide him. Fight them if we have to. Samuel, you're talking about going against the law. What law? Blackwood's law. Samuel's voice rose. The same law that let Pa's killers walk free. The same law that's going to let them take Mr. Whitfield and hang him for something he didn't do. The boy's right, Marcus said quietly. The law in this territory belongs to Blackwood, has for years. Going against it might be our only chance. Sarah looked at her son, at Marcus, at the children clustered in the doorway, their faces pale with fear. She thought of Daniel, of his body frozen in the snow, of Blackwood's smile as he threatened her family. How long do we have? Samuel swallowed. Marshall's supposed to arrive tomorrow morning. Then we've got tonight to prepare. Sarah straightened her spine, feeling something cold and hard settle into her chest. Samuel, start loading the wagon. Ruth, gather the essentials. James. Mama. Eliza's small voice cut through the chaos. What's happening? Sarah knelt, taking her daughter's hands. We're going on an adventure, baby. A big one. Are the bad men coming? Yes, but we're not going to let them win, because we're brave. Sarah pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the small heart beat against her own. Because we're porters, she whispered. And porters don't give up. That night they loaded the wagon with everything they could carry. Clothes, food, ammunition, Daniel's rifle, the family Bible with the children's names written inside. And just before dawn, Sarah stood at her husband's grave for the last time. I'm sorry, she whispered to the cold earth. I tried to hold on, tried to keep your dream alive, but I can't fight Blackwood and protect the children, so I'm choosing them. I hope you understand. The wind stirred the bare branches overhead. I'm not giving up, Sarah continued. Just changing tactics. Marcus has a plan, a way to fight back that doesn't get us all killed. I don't know if it'll work. Don't know if any of this will work. Her voice broke. But I have to try. For the babies, for everything you built. She touched the wooden marker tracing the letters of Daniel's name. I loved you, she said. I still love you, but I think... She hesitated. I think there's room for more. I think you'd want me to find it. The first light of dawn crept over the mountains. Goodbye, Daniel. Watch over us. She turned and walked back to the wagon where Marcus waited with the children. Ready? He asked. Sarah looked at the cabin where she'd spent 11 years of marriage, where she'd given birth to 7 children, where she'd buried her husband's memory and nearly buried her own heart. Ready. Marcus helped her onto the wagon seat. The children huddled in back, wrapped in blankets, their faces pale but determined. And as the sun rose over Montana territory, they rode away from everything Sarah had known, toward something unknown, toward danger and uncertainty and the distant hope of justice, toward whatever came next. Behind them, the cabin stood empty in the morning light, and somewhere on the road from Cedar Ridge, the marshal was already riding. They rode for 3 hours before the first gunshot split the morning air. Sarah yanked the reins, pulling the horses to a halt. Behind her, the children screamed. Down! Marcus shouted, throwing himself over Eliza and the twins. Everyone down! Another shot cracked. Wood splintered from the wagon's side, inches from Ruth's head. Mama! James cried. Sarah grabbed Daniel's rifle and rolled off the wagon seat, hitting the frozen ground hard. Pain lanced through her shoulder, but she ignored it, scrambling for cover behind the rear wheel. Samuel, get the children into the ditch now! Her son was already moving, pulling his siblings from the wagon bed one by one. Ruth clutched baby Hannah to her chest, her face white with terror. The twins stumbled and fell, snow soaking through their thin clothes. Marcus appeared beside Sarah, his own rifle raised. 3 shooters, ridge to the north, maybe 200 yards. Can you hit them from here? Not with this wind. Marcus's jaw tightened. We need to move. Another shot. The horse on the left screamed and collapsed, blood spraying across the snow. They're targeting the horses, Sarah said. They want us stuck here. Then we don't give them what they want. Marcus grabbed her arm. The trees. 50 yards south. If we can make it... The children can't run that far carrying Hannah. Then I'll carry Hannah. You get the others moving. Sarah looked at her children huddled in the shallow ditch beside the road. 7 terrified faces. 7 reasons to keep fighting. Samuel, she called. On my mark, we run for the trees. You take Matthew. James takes Mark. Ruth, stay with Eliza. What about Hannah? Ruth's voice shook. Mr. Whitfield has her. Don't look back. Don't stop. Just run. Samuel's face was pale, but his jaw was set. Ready. Sarah raised her rifle sighting toward the ridge where the shooters hid. Now. She fired. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. The children ran. Marcus scooped up baby Hannah, tucking her inside his coat, and sprinted after them. Sarah fired again, buying seconds, buying distance. A bullet whipped past her ear. She turned and ran. The trees loomed ahead. Samuel reached them first, dragging Matthew behind him. Ruth stumbled, and James caught her arm, pulling her forward. Marcus ducked behind a thick pine, Hannah wailing against his chest. Sarah threw herself into cover just as another shot cracked the air. "Everyone here?" she gasped, counting heads. "Ruth, James, the twins." "We're here, Mama," Eliza whimpered. "We're all here." Sarah sagged against the tree, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Safe, for now. "They'll circle around," Marcus said, his voice low. "Try to flank us. We need to keep moving. Where we've lost the wagon, lost the horses. My ranch is 15 miles northwest, if we can make it before nightfall. 15 miles through the snow with 7 children. You have a better idea." Sarah didn't. "Then we move." She pushed herself upright, ignoring the burning in her lungs. "Samuel, you take point. I'll watch the rear. Marcus, keep Hannah quiet." "How am I supposed to?" "Figure it out." They moved through the trees in single file, the older children helping the younger ones through the deep snow. The shooting had stopped, but Sarah could feel eyes on them. Watching. Waiting. "They're following us," Samuel said, his voice barely a whisper. "I can hear them." "I know." "What do we do?" Sarah looked at her eldest son. This boy who had become a man too young, who carried his father's burdens without complaint. "We keep moving, and we pray." They walked for 2 hours. The children grew quieter as exhaustion set in. The twins stopped complaining about the cold. Ruth's lips turned blue. Even Samuel's determined stride began to falter. "We need to rest," Marcus said, shifting Hannah to his other arm. The baby had stopped crying, which worried Sarah more than the tears had. "We can't. They're still out there. The children can't go much further." Sarah looked at her family. Matthew had stopped walking entirely, leaning against James for support. Mark was crying silently, tears freezing on his cheeks. Eliza clutched Ruth's hand so hard her knuckles were white. "Fine. 10 minutes. No more." They huddled together beneath a rocky overhang, sharing body heat. Sarah checked Hannah, relieved to find the baby sleeping peacefully inside Marcus's coat. "You're good with her," she said quietly. "Had practice." Marcus's voice was rough. Anna was colicky the first 3 months. Only thing that calmed her was being held close. Sarah's throat tightened. "Marcus, don't." He cut her off, but his voice was gentle. "Not now. We need to focus on surviving. And after..." He met her eyes. "After we can talk about whatever you want." Samuel appeared at Sarah's elbow, his face tense. "Mama, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that's standing in the trees about 100 yards east, watching us." Sarah's blood went cold. "How many?" "Just one, but he's not one of Blackwood's men." "How do you know?" "Because he's wearing a badge." Sarah's heart stopped. The marshal. "Stay here," she told Marcus. "Keep the children quiet." "Sarah, if he's working for Blackwood, then I'll handle it." She grabbed the rifle and stood. "Watch my family." She walked toward the tree line, her boots crunching in the snow, her rifle held ready but not raised. When she reached the edge of the clearing, a man stepped out from behind a pine. He was older than she expected. Gray-haired, weathered, with the kind of face that had seen too much and forgotten how to be surprised. A silver star gleamed on his chest. "Mrs. Porter." His voice was rough but not unkind. "You're a hard woman to find." "Marshal." "Name's Thomas Callahan, federal marshal out of Helena." He raised his hands slowly, showing they were empty. "I'm not here to hurt you or your children." "Then why are you here?" "Looking for the same man you've been running with, Marcus Whitfield." Callahan's eyes moved past her toward the overhang where the children huddled. Blackwood filed murder charges against him. Said Whitfield killed one of his men. Blackwood's lying. Maybe. Maybe not. Callahan lowered his hands. That's why I want to hear Whitfield's side of the story. You'll hang him without a trial. Blackwood owns every judge in the territory. I'm federal Mrs. Porter. Blackwood doesn't own me. Callahan took a step closer. I've been watching Cornelius Blackwood for 3 years, collecting evidence, waiting for the right moment to move against him. His eyes hardened. If Whitfield has information that can help me bring Blackwood down, I'm willing to listen. Sarah's mind raced. This could be a trap. Callahan could be working for Blackwood trying to gain their trust before arresting Marcus. Or he could be telling the truth. Why should I believe you? You shouldn't. Callahan's honesty caught her off guard. You don't know me. You have no reason to trust me. But you're running through the mountains in winter with 7 children and a man with a price on his head. Blackwood's men are hunting you. You've got maybe 6 hours before they catch up. And you're offering to help. I'm offering a choice. Keep running and Blackwood wins. Or take a chance on me, and maybe, just maybe, we all get what we want. Sarah stood frozen, her rifle heavy in her hands. Behind her, she could hear baby Hannah fussing. Could hear the twins whimpering with cold. Could hear Samuel's voice quiet and steady calming his siblings. She thought of Daniel, of the promise she'd made at his grave. If you're lying to me, she said slowly, if this is a trap, I will kill you myself. Callahan nodded. Fair enough. Marcus, Sarah called without turning around. You'd better come hear this. Marcus emerged from the overhang, Hannah still tucked inside his coat. His face was wary, his hand near his pistol. Marshal Callahan, Sarah said. He says he wants to bring down Blackwood. Says he's been investigating him for 3 years. Marcus studied the lawman for a long moment. Thomas Callahan. I've heard that name. Have you? Man who arrested the Dalton gang in '75. Man who brought down Senator Crawford for corruption 2 years later. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Man who doesn't take bribes. I try not to. Why Blackwood? What's he done that caught federal attention? Callahan's jaw tightened. Besides the land fraud, the intimidation, the murders covered up as accidents. He paused. He's been running guns to hostile Indian tribes, stirring up trouble so the government will send more troops. More troops means more contracts for supplies. More contracts means more money in Blackwood's pocket. Sarah's stomach turned. He's causing deaths for profit. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Callahan's voice was flat. Last year, a settlement called Miller's Creek was massacred. 37 people. Men, women, children. Official report said hostile Indians, but my investigation found Blackwood's men had been trading rifles to that tribe for months. Marcus went pale. Miller's Creek. I knew people there. So did I. Callahan's eyes held old pain. My sister and her family. Silence stretched between them. What do you need from us? Sarah finally asked. Evidence, testimony, something I can take to a federal judge that Blackwood can't buy or threaten. Callahan looked at Marcus. You ran the biggest ranch in the territory. You dealt with Blackwood directly. You must know something. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I have documents, he said slowly. Hidden at my ranch. Letters, receipts, records of payments. I started collecting them after Elizabeth and Anna died, trying to prove Blackwood was responsible. And I couldn't make a case, not enough evidence, but combined with what you have, it might be enough. Callahan's voice held a spark of hope. Where are these documents? Safe in my study, hidden compartment behind the fireplace. Then we need to get to your ranch. Blackwood's men are between us and there. I know. Callahan smiled grimly, but I've got something Blackwood doesn't expect. What's that? Back up. He whistled sharply. From the trees behind him emerged 6 men on horseback, Federal deputies, their badges gleaming in the weak winter sun. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. For the first time in weeks, hope didn't feel like a dangerous luxury. "Can you get us there?" she asked. "All of us. The children." Callahan's expression softened as he looked at the ragged group huddled under the overhang. 7 exhausted children. A wounded man. A widow who refused to give up. "Mrs. Porter, getting your family to safety is exactly what I intend to do." They rode hard for the rest of the day. Callahan's deputies formed a protective ring around the wagon the marshal had brought. Sarah sat in the back with her children holding Hannah close, watching the trees for any sign of pursuit. Marcus rode beside Callahan, their heads bent together in urgent conversation. "Mama?" Eliza tugged at Sarah's sleeve. "Are we safe now?" "I think so, baby." "The man with the star, is he a good man?" Sarah looked at Callahan at the set of his shoulders, the determination in his weathered face. "I think he's trying to be." "Like Mr. Marcus?" "Yes." Sarah smoothed her daughter's hair. "Like Mr. Marcus." They reached the Whitfield ranch as the sun was setting. Sarah had expected something grand. A mansion maybe, or at least a large farmhouse. What she found took her breath away. The main house was enormous. 3 stories of solid timber and stone, with windows that caught the dying light like jewels. Outbuildings stretched in orderly rows. Corrals held horses that gleamed with health. Men moved purposefully across the grounds, pausing to stare as the wagon rolled through the gates. "This is your home?" Samuel asked, his voice awed. "This is where I live." Marcus's voice was quiet. "It hasn't been home in 6 years." A man emerged from the main house and strode toward them. Tall, dark-skinned, with gray hair, cropped close to his skull, and eyes that missed nothing. "Boss!" His voice was deep and rough. "We thought you were dead." Almost was Ezekiel. Would have been if not for this family. Marcus dismounted, clasping the man's arm. "This is Sarah Porter, and her children. They saved my life." Ezekiel's gaze moved to Sarah, assessing. Whatever he saw seemed to satisfy him. "Ma'am." He touched his hat. "Any friend of Mr. Marcus is welcome here." "Thank you." "Zeke, we've got trouble coming." Marcus's voice dropped low. "Blackwood's men. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. We need to prepare." "Already heard." Ezekiel's jaw tightened. "Word came from town this morning. Blackwood's offering $500 for your head. Another $200 for anyone helping you." Sarah's stomach dropped. $700. "Blood money," Marcus said flatly. "Typical of Blackwood." "Some of the men are nervous," Ezekiel continued. "Few talking about riding out, waiting till this blows over." "And you?" Ezekiel met Marcus's eyes. "I've been with you 15 years, boss. Ain't leaving now." "Good man." Marcus clapped his shoulder. "Get the others together. Anyone who wants to stay will need them armed and ready. Anyone who wants to leave." He paused. "Let them go with a month's pay. No hard feelings." "Yes, sir." As Ezekiel strode away, Sarah moved to Marcus's side. $700. That's more than most people make in a year. Blackwood can afford it. Marcus's voice was bitter. He could afford 10 times that and not miss it. "Will your men stay?" "Some will. The ones who remember what loyalty means." Marcus looked at her, his expression softening. "Let's get your children inside. Fed, warmed, put to bed. Tomorrow's going to be hard." "And tonight?" "Tonight we prepare." The children fell asleep within minutes of eating. Sarah watched them from the doorway of the guest room. These 7 small bodies curled together for warmth even in the heated house. Hannah in Ruth's arms. The twins tangled together like puppies. Samuel and James on either side standing guard even in sleep. "They're beautiful." She turned. Marcus stood behind her, his face soft in the lamplight. "They're exhausted. Terrified. They've been running for their lives for days." And they're still beautiful. Marcus moved to stand beside her. You've raised them well, Sarah. I've kept them alive. That's different. Is it? He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, intimate. Keeping someone alive when the whole world's trying to kill them. Isn't that the hardest kind of love? Sarah's breath caught. Marcus. I know. Wrong time, wrong place. He dropped his hand. But I need you to know something. Before tomorrow. Before whatever happens next. What? When I woke up in your cabin, I thought God was playing a cruel joke, giving me another chance at life when I didn't deserve one. Marcus's voice roughened. But then I saw you, saw your children, saw the way you fought for them with everything you had, and I realized it wasn't a joke. It was a gift. I'm not a gift. I'm a widow with 7 mouths to feed and a dead husband I still love. I know. Marcus met her eyes. I'm a widower with a dead wife and daughter I'll never stop mourning. Neither of us is whole. Neither of us is ready. But maybe... He hesitated. Maybe broken pieces can fit together in new ways. Make something different. Something that works. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. I don't know if I can love anyone again. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you, fight beside you, whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes after. Marcus took her hand, pressing it against his chest. I'm asking for a chance. That's all. Sarah stood frozen, feeling his heartbeat beneath her palm. Strong, steady, alive. She thought of Daniel, of the last time she'd felt another heartbeat against her hand. One chance, she whispered. That's all I can give. Marcus smiled, and for a moment the grief lifted from his eyes. One chance is all I need. The attack came at dawn. Sarah woke to the sound of gunfire, already reaching for the rifle before her eyes were fully open. Marcus was gone from the chair where he'd been keeping watch. Mama! Samuel burst through the door. They're here! Dozens of them! Sarah was on her feet, her heart pounding. Where are your brothers and sisters? Zeke took them to the root cellar. Ruth has Hannah. They're safe. Good. Stay with them. No. Samuel's chin lifted. I'm fighting. Samuel. Pa would have fought. You would have fought. His hand dropped to his father's knife. I'm not hiding while other people die for us. Sarah looked at her son, 12 years old, a child. But the eyes that met hers were a man's eyes. Stay behind cover, don't take unnecessary risks, and if I tell you to run, I run, I know. Samuel grabbed a rifle from the rack by the door. Let's go. They found Marcus on the front porch, firing into the mass of riders that had surrounded the house. Ezekiel crouched beside him, reloading with practiced efficiency. How many? Sarah shouted over the gunfire. 40, maybe 50. Marcus's face was grim. Blackwood emptied his whole operation for this. Can we hold? For now. But they've got numbers. Sooner or later, a bullet shattered the window behind them. Sarah ducked, pulling Samuel down with her. We need to get to those documents. Callahan appeared, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. If we don't get that evidence out before Blackwood takes the house, I know. Marcus fired twice more, then turned to Sarah. The study, behind the fireplace. You'll see a loose stone third from the bottom. Pull it out and there's a metal box inside. Why me? Because I can't leave the line and Callahan needs to coordinate the deputies. You're the only one I trust. Sarah's heart lurched. Marcus. Go. Now. Before it's too late. She ran. The house was chaos. Servants fleeing. Gunfire rattling the windows. Smoke beginning to seep under doors as Blackwood's men set fires. Sarah found the study, slammed the door behind her, and raced to the fireplace. Third stone from the bottom. She dug her fingers into the crack, pulling with all her strength. The stone came free. Inside was a metal box, just as Marcus had said. Sarah grabbed it and turned to run. A man stood in the doorway. Cornelius Blackwood. Mrs. Porter. His smile was calm, pleasant, utterly terrifying. I believe you have something of mine. Sarah raised her rifle. Blackwood laughed. Please. Do you really think you can shoot me before my men kill everyone you love? He stepped into the room, his eyes fixed on the box in her hands. Give me the documents and I'll let your children live. Refuse and... He shrugged. Winter is harsh. Accidents happen. Sarah's finger trembled on the trigger. She thought of Hannah, of the twins, of Eliza's fierce little face. She thought of Daniel frozen in the snow. She thought of Marcus fighting for his life on the porch. No. Blackwood's smile faded. No. You killed my husband. You tried to kill the man I... She stopped, but the word hung between them anyway. You burned down Marcus's home, murdered his wife and daughter, slaughtered innocents for profit. I did what was necessary to build an empire. You destroyed lives. I built something that will last forever. Blackwood's voice hardened. Now give me those documents, or I swear I'll burn this house to the ground with your children inside. Sarah's hands shook. Behind Blackwood she saw movement, a small figure creeping through the shadows. Samuel. Her son raised his father's knife. Sarah met Blackwood's eyes and smiled. Go to hell! Samuel struck. The knife buried itself in Blackwood's shoulder. The man screamed, spinning around, and Sarah swung the rifle like a club. It connected with his skull with a sickening crack. Blackwood collapsed. Mama! Samuel rushed to her side. Are you? I'm fine. Sarah grabbed her son's arm. We need to go. Now. They ran through the burning house, the metal box clutched to Sarah's chest. Outside, the battle had turned. Callahan's deputies had arrived with reinforcements. Federal marshals poured through the gates, overwhelming Blackwood's hired guns. Men threw down their weapons and surrendered. Marcus met them on the porch, his face bloody but alive. You got it. Sarah pressed the box into his hands. Everything. Marcus opened it, rifling through the documents inside. His expression shifted from hope to triumph. This is it. Everything we need. He looked at Callahan. Letters from Blackwood ordering the gun shipments. Receipts from tribal contacts. A list of every judge and sheriff he's bribed. Marcus's voice shook. This ends him. What about Blackwood himself? Callahan asked. In the study. Sarah's voice was flat. Samuel stabbed him. I hit him with a rifle. He might be dead. I don't really care. Callahan's deputies dragged Blackwood out 10 minutes later. He was alive. Barely. Blood soaked his expensive coat, and his eyes held the dazed confusion of a man whose empire had just crumbled. Cornelius Blackwood. Callahan's voice carried across the suddenly silent yard. You're under arrest for murder, conspiracy, treason, and about 50 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading to you. Blackwood's eyes found Sarah. You, he spat, you ruined everything. No. Sarah stepped forward, her children gathering around her. You ruined yourself. We just made sure you paid for it. They loaded Blackwood into a wagon. Sarah watched until he disappeared from sight. Then her knees gave out. Marcus caught her before she hit the ground. Easy. I've got you. My children. Safe. All of them. Ruth's bringing them up from the cellar now. Sarah sagged against him, 4 years of exhaustion finally catching up. Is it over? The fighting is. Marcus's arms tightened around her. But the healing's just beginning. Sarah looked up at him. At this man who had stumbled into her life half dead and somehow become everything. Stay with me, she whispered, while I heal. Marcus pressed his lips to her forehead. Forever, if you'll let me. Sarah closed her eyes and for the first time in 4 years, let herself rest. 3 weeks passed before Sarah could stand without shaking. The doctor Marcus brought from Helena said it was exhaustion. 4 years of running on nothing but fear and stubbornness had finally caught up with her body. She needed rest, he said. Food. Time to heal. Sarah hated every minute of it. "You're supposed to be in bed," Marcus said, finding her in the kitchen at dawn trying to help the cook prepare breakfast. "I'm supposed to be useful. You're supposed to be recovering. I've been recovering for 3 weeks. My children need me." "Your children are fine." Marcus took the bowl from her hands, setting it aside. "Ruth's got Hannah on a schedule. Samuel's helping Ezekiel with the horses. The twins are terrorizing the chickens. Everyone's fine." "Everyone's not fine. I'm not fine." Sarah's voice cracked. "I don't know how to do this, Marcus. How to stop. How to let someone else carry the weight." "You learn." Marcus took her hands, his grip warm and steady. "Day by day, minute by minute, you let people help even when it feels wrong, even when every instinct screams at you to do it yourself." "What if I can't?" "Then we figure it out together." He raised her hands to his lips. "That's what together means." Sarah looked at this man who had become her anchor, who had fought beside her, bled beside her, nearly died beside her. "I don't deserve you." "Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you." A small voice interrupted them. "Mama, Mr. Marcus." Eliza stood in the doorway. Her red hair sleep-tangled, her eyes wide with something Sarah couldn't identify. "What is it, baby?" "There's a man here, a fancy man. He says he's from the government." Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances. "Stay with the children," Marcus said. "I'll handle this." "No." Sarah straightened her spine. "We handle this together." The man waiting in the front parlor was indeed fancy. Expensive suit, polished boots, a gold watch chain gleaming against his vest. He rose when Sarah and Marcus entered, his smile practiced and political. "Mrs. Porter, Mr. Whitfield, I'm Senator Charles Worthington, chairman of the Territorial Affairs Committee." He extended his hand. "I've come about the Blackwood matter." Sarah didn't take his hand. "What about it?" Worthington's smile flickered but held. "Direct. I appreciate that." He withdrew his hand smoothly. "As you know, Cornelius Blackwood is currently awaiting trial for numerous federal charges. The evidence you provided has been illuminating. Illuminating enough to hang him. That's for the courts to decide. However," Worthington paused delicately, "there are complications." Sarah's stomach tightened. What kind of complications? The kind that involve powerful friends in Washington. Worthington's voice dropped. "Blackwood has connections, people who benefited from his enterprises, people who would prefer the trial never happen." Marcus stepped forward. "You're saying someone's trying to get him off. I'm saying there are forces at work that go beyond a territorial courtroom." Worthington met Marcus's eyes. "Forces that might make certain evidence disappear. Certain witnesses become unreliable. Marshal Callahan has the documents." Marshal Callahan was reassigned this morning. New posting in Arizona Territory. Worthington's expression was grim. "Effective immediately." Sarah felt the floor shift beneath her feet. "They're covering it up." "They're trying to." Worthington reached into his coat, withdrawing a sealed envelope. "But not everyone in Washington is corrupt. Some of us remember what justice means." He handed the envelope to Sarah. "This is a subpoena. You've been called to testify before a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. Both of you." "Washington." Sarah stared at the envelope. "That's 2,000 miles away. The trial's been moved out of territorial jurisdiction. Too many compromised judges." Worthington's voice hardened. "This is our one chance to bring Blackwood down properly, but we need your testimony. Need you to tell the grand jury exactly what happened." "When?" Marcus asked. 3 weeks. The journey alone will take most of that." Sarah looked at the envelope in her hands, at Marcus. at the doorway where she could hear her children's voices drifting from the kitchen. "My children," she said. "I can't leave them. Bring them." Worthington's tone softened. "I've arranged accommodations, a private rail car, everything you need." He paused. "Mrs. Porter, I understand this is asking a great deal. But if you don't testify, Blackwood walks free. Everything you suffered, everything you lost, it will have been for nothing." Sarah's hands trembled around the envelope. She thought of Daniel, of his grave abandoned on the homestead, of the promise she'd made to see justice done. "I'll do it." "Sarah." Marcus caught her arm. "We need to discuss this." "What's to discuss?" "You heard him. Without our testimony, Blackwood goes free." Sarah's voice shook with fury. "I didn't drag you out of the snow and fight off his men and nearly die half a dozen times just to let him walk away. I'm not saying we don't testify. I'm saying we think about it first. Plan. Make sure the children are safe." "The children come with us." You heard the senator. "A 2,000-mile journey in winter with a baby. Hannah's survived worse." "That's not—" "Mr. Whitfield," Worthington interrupted smoothly. "I assure you every precaution will be taken. Federal marshals will escort you the entire way. The rail car is heated, comfortable, well-provisioned. Your family will be protected." Marcus's jaw tightened. "And what about Blackwood's friends, the ones trying to make evidence disappear?" "That's precisely why we need you in Washington quickly, before they can regroup." Worthington moved toward the door. "I'll give you tonight to decide, but I need an answer by morning." He left. Sarah and Marcus stood in silence, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. "This is a trap," Marcus said finally. "Maybe. 2,000 miles from home, no allies, surrounded by politicians who might be working for Blackwood." He ran a hand through his hair. "It's exactly where they want us." "Then what do you suggest?" "We hide here and wait for Blackwood's friends to make the evidence disappear." Sarah's voice rose. "Wait for them to send more men, more threats. How long before they come for the children?" "I'm not saying we hide. I'm saying we be smart about this." "What's smart about letting a murderer go free?" Marcus grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "What's smart is keeping you alive long enough to testify. What's smart is making sure your 7 children don't become orphans." His voice broke. "I already lost one family, Sarah. I can't lose another." Sarah's anger drained away. "Marcus, I know you need to do this. I know justice matters. But—" He pressed his forehead against hers. "Let me protect you. Please. Let me be smart enough for both of us." Sarah raised her hand, cupping his cheek. "How do we do this and stay alive?" "I don't know yet." Marcus pulled back, his mind visibly working. "But I know someone who might." "Who?" "Ezekiel. They found him in the barn tending to the horses." When Marcus explained the situation, Ezekiel listened without interrupting. His weathered face gave nothing away. "Washington," he said finally. "Long way. Too long to travel unprotected. Federal marshals. Might be compromised." Ezekiel nodded slowly. "What do you need?" "Men I can trust. 3, maybe 4. People who can blend in but know how to fight." "Got a few in mind." Ezekiel's eyes moved to Sarah. "Ma'am, you sure about this?" "I'm sure Blackwood has to pay for what he did." "Wasn't asking about Blackwood. Was asking about the children." Ezekiel's voice softened. 2,000 miles is a long way for little ones." Sarah's throat tightened. "They've already survived worse." "Maybe so. But surviving ain't the same as living." Ezekiel paused. "Leave them here, with me. I'll keep them safe till you get back." "I can't." "Mama can't leave us." Samuel stood in the barn doorway, his face pale. "Samuel." Sarah crossed to her son. "How much did you hear?" Enough. Samuel's jaw tightened. You're going to Washington to testify against Blackwood. I have to. Then I'm coming with you. Samuel. No. Samuel's voice cracked, hovering between boy and man. I'm not staying behind while you walk into danger. I'm not waiting here wondering if you're alive or dead. I'm not... He stopped, struggling for control. I can't lose you too, Mama. I can't. Sarah pulled her son into her arms. You won't lose me. You don't know that. No, I don't. Sarah pulled back, meeting his eyes. But I know that hiding won't keep us safe. Running won't keep us safe. The only thing that ends this is making sure Blackwood pays for what he did. Then let me help. You can help by taking care of your brothers and sisters. Ruth can do that. She's been doing it for weeks. Samuel's chin lifted. I'm 12 years old. Pa was working full-time at 12. Fighting wasn't much older when he joined the army. Your father would want me to protect this family. Samuel's hand dropped to the knife at his belt. Let me come, Mama, please. Sarah looked at her son, at the determination in his young face, at the echoes of Daniel that stared back at her. Ezekiel, she said without turning, can you keep 6 children safe? Yes, ma'am. Ruth's in charge. She's 9, but she's got a good head. I'll look after them like they were my own. Sarah drew a shaking breath. Then it settled. Samuel comes with us. The others stay. Samuel's face split into a grin that made him look for just a moment like the child he still was. Thank you, Mama. Don't thank me yet. Sarah gripped his shoulders. This isn't an adventure. It's dangerous. You do exactly what Marcus and I tell you. No arguments, no heroics. Yes, ma'am. And if something happens to me, Sarah's voice caught. You get yourself back here. You take care of your brothers and sisters. You live Samuel. That's the most important thing. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me. Samuel's grin faded. He held his mother's gaze. I promise. The next morning, Sarah told the other children. Ruth cried. James tried not to and failed. The twins clung to Sarah's legs, begging her not to go. Even baby Hannah seemed to sense something was wrong, fussing and reaching for her mother. Only Eliza stayed quiet. You're coming back, she said, her voice flat. Not a question. Yes, baby, I'm coming back. Promise? Sarah knelt, taking her daughter's hands. I promise. Eliza studied her mother's face with those 2 old eyes. Okay. She nodded once. I'll take care of the others while you're gone. That's Ruth's job. Ruth cries too much. I'll help her. Eliza's chin lifted. We'll be fine, Mama. Just come back. Sarah pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her hair. I love you, baby. I love you too. Eliza pulled back. Now go, before Matthew starts crying again. Sarah laughed despite her tears. When did you get so bossy? Learned from you. The train pulled out of Helena 3 days later. Senator Worthington had been true to his word. The private rail car was comfortable, even luxurious. Plush seats, a small sleeping compartment, a wood stove that kept the winter chill at bay. 4 federal marshals rode with them. 2 in the rail car, 2 in the car ahead. They were professional, courteous, and constantly alert. But it was Marcus's men who made Sarah feel truly safe. Ezekiel had chosen well. 3 former soldiers, quiet and watchful, who seemed to melt into the background until you needed them. You're quiet, Marcus said, settling beside her as the Montana landscape rolled past the windows. Thinking. About what? The children. Whether I made the right choice leaving them. Sarah's voice dropped. Whether I'll ever see them again. You will. You can't know that. No, but I can believe it. Marcus took her hand. And right now, belief is all we have. Samuel appeared from the sleeping compartment, his face pale. Something's wrong. Sarah was on her feet instantly. What? The marshals. The ones in the front car. Samuel swallowed hard. They're not there anymore. Marcus moved to the door connecting the cars. He opened it, carefully peered through. Empty. Sarah's blood went cold. Where did they go? Don't know. But... Marcus turned back, his face grim. We need to check on the others. They found the two marshals in the rail car slumped in their seats unconscious. Empty cups on the table between them. Drugged. Mama? Samuel's voice shook. What's happening? Someone's coming for us. Marcus pulled his pistol. Sarah, get Samuel to the back of the car. Block the door. Marcus? Do it. Now. Sarah grabbed Samuel's arm and ran. They'd barely reached the rear door when the front door burst open. 3 men, armed, faces covered with bandanas. End of the line, Mrs. Porter. The leader's voice was cold. Mr. Blackwood sends his regards. Marcus fired. The first man dropped. The second returned fire, the shot going wide, shattering a window. Marcus dove behind a seat, firing again. Sarah shoved Samuel toward the rear door. Go, jump if you have to. I'm not leaving you. Samuel, please. The third man appeared from nowhere. His gun pressed against Sarah's temple. Drop it, Whitfield, or the widow dies. Marcus froze. His eyes found Sarah's. Let her go. Drop the gun first. Marcus's jaw tightened. Slowly, he set his pistol on the floor. Good. The man's grip on Sarah tightened. Now, we're going to have a nice little talk about that testimony. Samuel moved. The boy launched himself at the gunman, his father's knife flashing. The blade caught the man's arm, and he screamed, his grip on Sarah loosening. Sarah twisted, driving her elbow into his stomach. Marcus lunged for his gun. The shot echoed through the rail car. Sarah hit the floor, blood roaring in her ears. For a terrible moment, she thought she'd been shot. Then, she saw the gunman crumple, and Marcus's man standing in the connecting doorway, rifle smoking. Sorry we're late, boss. Had to deal with the ones in the engine car. Marcus hauled Sarah to her feet. You hurt? No, I don't think so. Sarah's hands shook as she checked herself for wounds. Samuel. Samuel, are you? Her son stood over the fallen gunman, his father's knife still clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Blood stained the blade. I cut him, Samuel whispered. I actually cut him. Sarah pulled her son into her arms. You saved my life. I was scared. I know, baby, I was too. Is it always like this? Samuel's voice cracked. Being brave, yes. Sarah pressed her lips to his hair. Every single time. They spent the night in a secured station while Marcus's men dealt with the aftermath. The attackers were hired guns. No direct connection to Blackwood, but the timing was impossible to ignore. Someone knew we were coming, Marcus said, pacing the small station house. Knew which train, which car? The senator. Maybe, or someone in his office. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. We can't trust anyone from here on out. Then how do we get to Washington? Different route, different names. Marcus's eyes met hers. Sarah, if you want to turn back. No. They nearly killed you. They nearly killed all of us. That's exactly why we can't stop. Sarah's voice hardened. Blackwood sent those men because he's scared, because he knows what we can do. If we turn back now, he wins. And if we die, then at least we died fighting. Sarah moved to stand before him. Marcus, I've spent 4 years hiding, 4 years running, 4 years letting fear dictate my choices. She took his hands. I'm done. Whatever happens, I'm seeing this through. Marcus searched her face. You're the bravest person I've ever known. I'm terrified. That's what makes it brave. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle this time, wasn't tentative. It was fierce and desperate, the kiss of two people who didn't know if they'd survive the week. When they broke apart, Sarah was trembling. Marcus. I know. Wrong time. Wrong place. He pressed his forehead against hers. But I needed you to know. Before whatever comes next. I love you, Sarah. I've loved you since you told me self-pity wouldn't heal me faster. Sarah laughed despite her tears. That was the moment. That was the moment I knew you were different. Marcus cupped her face. Say you'll marry me. When this is over. Say you'll let me spend the rest of my life making you happy. Marcus, I can't. Don't answer now. Don't answer until we're safe, until Blackwood's in prison, until your children are back in your arms. His voice roughened. Just tell me there's a chance. That's all I need. Sarah looked at this man who had become her world. There's a chance, she whispered. Marcus smiled, and for a moment the fear lifted from his eyes. Then let's go finish this. They reached Washington 2 weeks later. The city overwhelmed Sarah. So many people, so much noise, buildings that stretched toward the sky like they were trying to touch heaven. Mama, look. Samuel pressed his face to the carriage window. Is that the Capitol? I think so. Pa always wanted to see it, said every American should see where the laws get made. Sarah's throat tightened. I wish he was here. Me too. Samuel was quiet for a moment. But I think he'd be proud of what we're doing. I think so too. The grand jury convened 3 days later. Sarah sat in the witness chair, her hands folded in her lap, facing a room full of men who held her fate in their hands. Mrs. Porter. The prosecutor's voice was kind but businesslike. Please tell the jury in your own words what happened on the night of December 14th, 1879. Sarah drew a breath. And she told them everything. About finding Marcus in the snow. About Blackwood's threats. About the forged mortgage, the attacks, the men who tried to kill her children. She told them about Daniel. About his murder disguised as an accident. About 4 years of knowing the truth but being unable to prove it. She told them about the battle at the Whitfield Ranch. About Blackwood's own words as he threatened to burn her children alive. When she finished, the room was silent. Mrs. Porter? A gray-haired juror leaned forward. Do you have any proof of these allegations against Mr. Blackwood? I have the documents Mr. Whitfield collected. Letters, receipts, records of payments. Documents can be forged. These weren't. How can you be certain? Sarah met the man's eyes. Because my husband died for refusing to do business with Blackwood. Because Mr. Whitfield's wife and daughter died in a fire Blackwood ordered. Because Blackwood himself told me he would burn my children alive if I didn't give him what he wanted. Her voice shook with fury. That's how I'm certain. The juror sat back. The prosecutor stepped forward. The prosecution calls Marcus James Whitfield to the stand. Marcus testified for 3 hours. He laid out Blackwood's empire piece by piece, the land fraud, the gun running, the bribes, the murders. He named names, provided dates, connected dots that the government had been trying to connect for years. When he finished, even the skeptical juror looked convinced. The jury will retire to deliberate, the judge announced. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. Sarah found Marcus in the hallway, surrounded by reporters shouting questions. Mr. Whitfield, is it true Blackwood threatened your family? Mrs. Porter, how does it feel to finally get justice? Do you think Blackwood will hang? Sarah pushed through the crowd, grabbing Marcus's arm. We need to go, now. What's wrong? Samuel. Sarah's voice dropped. He's missing. They found him an hour later. Not missing. Taken. The note was pinned to their hotel room door. Samuel's father's knife lying beneath it. We have the boy. Drop the case or he dies. You have until midnight. Sarah's world collapsed. No. She grabbed Marcus's arm. No, no, no. Sarah. They have my son. Her voice rose to a scream. They have my son. Marcus caught her as her knees gave way. We'll find him. How? We don't even know who took him. I know. Marcus's voice was iron. And I know where they'd take him. Where? Blackwood has a townhouse here. Uses it when he's in Washington on business. Marcus's jaw tightened. If his people have Samuel, that's where he'll be. Then let's go. Sarah, we need to think. I don't have time to think. Sarah grabbed her coat. My son is out there, my 12-year-old son, in the hands of men who've already tried to kill us 3 times. She spun to face him. Are you coming, or do I do this alone? Marcus held her gaze for a long moment. You're never doing anything alone again. He grabbed his pistol. Let's go get your son. The Blackwood townhouse loomed at the end of Embassy Row, its windows dark except for a single light burning on the 3rd floor. Sarah counted the guards. 2 at the front door, 1 patrolling the side alley. Probably more inside. We can't go through the front, Marcus murmured beside her. Then we go through the back. Sarah, there are at least 6 men in there, armed, professional. I don't care if there are 60. Sarah's voice came out raw. My son is in that house. Marcus gripped her arm. And he needs you alive to save him. We do this smart, or we don't do it at all. Then tell me the smart way. Marcus studied the building, his mind working. The servants' entrance, around back. Probably 1 guard, maybe 2. He pointed to a narrow gap between the townhouse and its neighbor. We go through there, take out anyone in our way quiet. Find Samuel. Get out before they know we're there. And if they do know, then we improvise. Sarah drew her pistol. The weight of it felt foreign in her hand. She'd fired rifles all her life, but handguns were different. Closer, more personal. I've never killed anyone, she said quietly. You don't have to. Just keep moving. I'll handle the rest. Marcus. Sarah caught his arm. If something happens to me in there, nothing's going to happen to you. If something happens, she pressed on, get Samuel out. Promise me. Marcus's jaw tightened. I promise. They moved. The alley was narrow and dark, smelling of garbage and old rain. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, following Marcus's shadow. The first guard never saw them coming. Marcus was on him before the man could draw his weapon, a quick blow to the temple that dropped him without a sound. Sarah helped drag the unconscious body behind a stack of crates. 1 down, Marcus breathed. The servant's door was locked. Marcus produced a thin piece of metal from his pocket, working it into the keyhole with practiced ease. Where did you learn that, war? The lock clicked open. You pick up all kinds of skills when you're trying to survive. Inside the house was quiet. Too quiet. Their footsteps seemed to echo on the polished floors, despite their efforts at silence. 3rd floor, Marcus mouthed, pointing upward. They climbed the stairs, pausing at each landing to listen. Sarah's heart hammered so loud, she was certain the guards could hear it. On the 2nd floor, voices drifted from behind a closed door. 2 men, maybe 3, talking in low tones. Marcus held up his hand. Wait. The voices faded as the men moved to another room. They kept climbing. The 3rd floor hallway stretched before them, lit by a single gas lamp. At the far end, a door stood slightly ajar. Light spilled through the gap. And then Sarah heard it. Samuel's voice. You're making a mistake. Her son sounded scared but defiant. Trying to be brave. Trying to be the man he wasn't yet. Sarah moved before Marcus could stop her. She kicked the door open, her pistol raised. Samuel sat tied to a chair, his face bruised, his lip split. But he was alive, alert. His eyes widened when he saw her. Mama. Well, well. Cornelius Blackwood stepped from the shadows. He looked different than the last time Sarah had seen him. Thinner, paler. Prison had worn him down, but his eyes still held that cold intelligence that made him dangerous. Mrs. Porter, I wondered if you'd come. He smiled, showing too many teeth. A mother's love, so predictable. Let my son go. I don't think I will. Blackwood moved closer to Samuel, resting his hand on the boy's shoulder. Samuel flinched. You see, your testimony has caused me considerable trouble. My trial starts tomorrow. The evidence against me is substantial. You should have thought about that before you murdered my husband. Daniel Porter. Blackwood laughed. A horse trainer with delusions of moral superiority. He thought he could refuse me, and there wouldn't be consequences. His smile faded. There are always consequences, Mrs. Porter, as you're about to learn. Let him go, Cornelius. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his pistol trained on Blackwood's chest. It's over. Is it? Blackwood's hand tightened on Samuel's shoulder. You're forgetting something, Marcus. I have nothing left to lose. My empire is crumbling. My reputation is destroyed. The hangman is waiting. He leaned close to Samuel's ear. All I have left is revenge. Touch him, and I'll kill you. You might, but not before I... Samuel moved. The boy threw himself sideways chair, and all knocking Blackwood off balance. Sarah fired. The shot went wide, shattering a vase on the mantel. Blackwood lunged for the door. Marcus tackled him. They crashed to the floor, struggling for control. Blackwood was older, weaker, but desperation gave him strength. He clawed at Marcus's face, his eyes wild. Sarah ran to Samuel, pulling at the ropes that bound him. Mama, behind you! She spun. A guard stood in the doorway, his rifle raised. Time slowed. Sarah saw the man's finger tighten on the trigger, saw the barrel pointed at her chest, saw death coming, and knew she couldn't stop it. The shot came from somewhere else. The guard dropped. Senator Worthington stood in the hallway, a smoking pistol in his hand, federal marshals pouring past him. Marshal's office received an anonymous tip about kidnapping, Worthington said, stepping over the fallen guard. Imagine my surprise when I learned it was connected to our star witness. Sarah didn't respond. She was too busy freeing Samuel, pulling the ropes from his wrists, gathering him into her arms. Mama! Samuel's voice broke. You came. I'll always come. Sarah pressed her lips to his hair, tears streaming down her face. Always. Across the room, Marcus had subdued Blackwood. The older man lay face down on the carpet, his hands twisted behind his back, his face pressed into the floor. It's over, Marcus said, breathing hard. Cornelius Blackwood, you're under arrest. Again. Blackwood laughed. It was an ugly sound, broken and bitter. You think this changes anything? You think putting me in prison will fix what I've done? He twisted to look at Sarah. Your husband is still dead. Your homestead is still gone. Your children grew up without a father because of me. His smile was vicious. You won, Mrs. Porter, but I took everything from you first. Sarah released Samuel. She crossed to where Blackwood lay standing over him, looking down at the man who had destroyed her life. You're wrong, she said quietly. Am I? You took my husband. You took my home. You took 4 years of my life. Sarah's voice strengthened. But you didn't take everything. You didn't take my children. You didn't take my strength. You didn't take my ability to love again. Her eyes found Marcus across the room. You tried to break me, Cornelius, and you failed. Blackwood's smile flickered. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Take him, Sarah said to the marshals. I'm done looking at him. They dragged Blackwood away. And Sarah Porter, widow of Daniel Porter, mother of 7, survivor of everything the world had thrown at her, stood in the wreckage of her enemy's defeat and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. The trial resumed the next morning. With Blackwood's attempted escape and kidnapping added to the charges, the outcome was never in doubt. The jury deliberated for less than an hour before returning a verdict. Guilty. On all counts. The judge's gavel fell like thunder. Cornelius Blackwood, you have been found guilty of murder, conspiracy, treason, kidnapping, and numerous other offenses against the people of this nation. The judge's voice was cold. You have shown no remorse, no humanity, no regard for the lives you destroyed. It is the sentence of this court that you be hanged by the neck until dead. Sentenced to be carried out 30 days hence. Blackwood said nothing. He didn't look at the jury, didn't look at the judge, didn't look at the crowded gallery that had come to witness his destruction. He looked at Sarah, and in his eyes she saw finally truly the face of defeat. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, simply held his gaze until they led him away. Then she turned to Marcus and Samuel waiting for her in the gallery. "Let's go home," she said. The journey back to Montana took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of train travel of small towns and big cities, of Samuel healing from his ordeal, and Sarah and Marcus growing closer with each passing mile. They talked about everything. About Daniel and Elizabeth. About loss and grief and the long road back from darkness. They talked about the future. "The homestead," Sarah said one night, watching Montana territory roll past the window. "I need to go back, see what's left. We can rebuild." "I know, but—" she hesitated. "I'm not sure I want to. There are too many ghosts there." "Then we build something new." Marcus took her hand. "My ranch is too big for one person. Always has been. I built it for a family I never got to have." "Marcus, I'm not asking you to give up who you are. I'm asking you to expand it." He raised her hand to his lips. "The Porter Whitfield Ranch has a nice ring to it." Sarah laughed despite herself. "You've been thinking about this?" "I've been thinking about nothing else." She looked at him, at this man who had stumbled into her life half dead and somehow become everything. "Ask me again." "What?" "Ask me to marry you, properly this time." Marcus's eyes widened. Then he dropped to one knee right there in the swaying railcar, with Samuel watching from the doorway and the Montana mountains rolling past. "Sarah Elizabeth Porter, you saved my life. You taught me to feel again. You showed me that broken people can build something whole." His voice shook. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you?" Sarah looked at her son. Samuel nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. She looked back at Marcus. "Yes." He was on his feet in an instant, gathering her into his arms, kissing her with a joy that made her feel young again. "Gross," Samuel said from the doorway, but he was grinning. They reached the Whitfield Ranch on a crisp spring morning. The children were waiting. Ruth spotted the wagon first, and her shriek brought the others running. Within seconds, Sarah was surrounded by small bodies, everyone talking at once, everyone trying to hug her simultaneously. "Mama, you're back. We missed you so much. Samuel, did you really fight bad guys? Is Mr. Marcus coming to live with us? Did you bring presents?" Sarah laughed and cried, and held her children, all 7 of them, like she would never let go. "Yes," she said when she could finally speak. "Yes to all of it." Ezekiel emerged from the house, his weathered face split in a rare smile. "Good to have you home, ma'am." "Good to be home." Sarah looked around at the ranch, at the mountains rising in the distance, at her children, and the man who would soon be her husband. "It feels different." "Ma'am, it feels like home, really home." She took Marcus's hand, for the first time in 4 years. The wedding took place 6 weeks later. Sarah wore the dress Elizabeth had been married in. Marcus had offered it, and after much deliberation, Sarah had accepted. It felt right somehow. A blessing from one wife to another. The ceremony was small, just family Ezekiel and a few trusted friends from town. The same town that had once shunned Sarah for taking in a stranger. That had changed too. Word had spread about what really happened. About Blackwood's crimes, his murders, his empire built on blood. The people of Cedar Ridge had come to Sarah one by one, offering apologies, offering help, offering the community she'd been denied for 4 years. She accepted their apologies. She was learning that holding on to anger only hurt the one who held it. But she didn't forget. "Dearly beloved," the preacher began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of these 2 souls." Sarah looked at Marcus, standing tall and clean-shaven, his eyes never leaving her face. She looked at her children, lined up in the front row. Ruth holding Hannah. James trying to look serious. the twins poking each other until Eliza shushed them. Samuel standing slightly apart, his father's knife on his belt, a man's responsibility in a boy's frame. She thought of Daniel. Not with grief this time, with gratitude. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me these children. Thank you for teaching me what strength really means. Do you, Marcus James Whitfield, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Sarah Elizabeth Porter, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Sarah drew a breath. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Marcus kissed her, and the children cheered, and somewhere in the distance a meadowlark sang its spring song. That night, after the children were asleep, Sarah stood on the porch of her new home, looking up at the stars. Marcus joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. She leaned back against him. I keep waiting to wake up, waiting for something to go wrong. Something probably will eventually. That's life. Marcus pressed his lips to her hair. But we'll face it together. Together. Sarah smiled. I like that word. Get used to it. You're going to be hearing it a lot. Mama. They turned. Eliza stood in the doorway clutching her rag doll, her red hair mussed from sleep. What is it? Baby. Bad dream. No. Eliza padded toward them, her bare feet silent on the wooden boards. I just wanted to make sure you were still here. I'm here. Sarah knelt, opening her arms. I'll always be here. Eliza ran into her embrace. Are you happy, Mama? The question caught Sarah off guard. Such a simple question, such a complicated answer. Yes, baby. Sarah held her daughter close. I think I am. Good. Eliza pulled back her serious eyes, moving to Marcus. Are you going to make Mama happy forever? Marcus knelt beside them. That's my plan. Plans don't always work. No, they don't. Marcus met the child's gaze with equal seriousness. But I'm going to try every single day. Can you help me? Eliza considered this. Okay. But if you make her cry sad tears, I'll be really mad at you. That's fair. Eliza nodded, apparently satisfied. Can I have some milk? Sarah laughed. Yes, baby. You can have some milk. She carried her daughter inside, Marcus following. In the kitchen, she poured milk, while Eliza chattered about the chickens and the new foal, and whether Samuel would teach her to shoot. Normal things. Everyday things. The things Sarah had spent 4 years fighting to protect. After Eliza was tucked back into bed, Sarah returned to the porch. Marcus was still there waiting. She's something else, he said. She's Daniel's daughter, stubborn to the bone. She's your daughter too. Marcus pulled her close. Brave, fierce, terrifyingly direct. Is that a compliment? The highest. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Marcus. Thank you. He pulled back to look at her. For what? For falling into that snowbank. For being too stubborn to die. For giving me something to fight for when I'd forgotten how to fight for myself. Sarah's voice thickened. For showing my children that not all men leave. That some of them stay. Marcus's arms tightened around her. I'll stay, he said quietly. For as long as you'll have me. Forever then? Forever works. They went inside together. 5 years later, Sarah stood at Daniel's grave. The homestead was long gone, sold to a young couple who'd rebuilt the cabin and planted an orchard. But she'd kept this small plot, this quiet corner, where her first husband rested. Hello, Daniel. She knelt, placing wildflowers on the stone. The children are growing. Samuel's 16, now taller than you ever were. He's running the horse breeding program at the ranch. Says you taught him everything he knows. She smiled. Ruth's getting married next spring. Nice young man from Helena. You'd approve. She paused, gathering her thoughts. James enlisted in the cavalry. I tried to talk him out of it, but you know how stubborn our children are. Matthew and Mark are still inseparable, still causing trouble wherever they go. Hannah's learning to read. And Eliza— Sarah laughed. Eliza's exactly like you. Bossy and brave and absolutely certain she's right about everything. The wind stirred the grass around the headstone. Marcus is good to us, good to your children. He doesn't try to replace you, just adds to what you built. Sarah's voice softened. I think you'd like him, Daniel. I think you'd be glad I found someone to stand beside me. She touched the stone, tracing the letters of his name. I still miss you, every day. But it's different now. It doesn't hurt the way it used to. She paused. I hope that's okay. I hope you understand. The meadowlark sang in the distance, the same song it had sung on her wedding day. The same song she'd heard the morning Daniel proposed to her a lifetime ago. Goodbye, Daniel. Thank you for everything. Sarah rose, brushing dirt from her skirts. Marcus waited by the wagon, their youngest child in his arms. A girl 2 years old with Sarah's eyes and Marcus's smile. They'd named her Hope. Ready? Marcus asked as Sarah climbed up beside him. She looked back at Daniel's grave one last time, at the homestead in the distance, at the mountains that had sheltered her family through 4 brutal winters. Then she looked forward, at the road stretching before them, at the husband beside her and the daughter reaching for her hand. Ready? The wagon rolled away, carrying them toward home. And Sarah Porter Whitfield, who had once divided her last bread into 7 pieces, who had dragged a dying stranger from the snow, who had faced down murderers, and testified before Congress, and built a new life from the ashes of the old, felt her heart overflow with something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Gratitude. Not for the easy moments. Those were rare enough in this hard country. But for the struggles, the losses, the long nights of doubt and fear and desperate prayer. Because those were the things that had forged her into the woman she'd become. A mother, a wife, a survivor. A woman who had learned that love doesn't end with death. It transforms, it grows. It finds new soil and takes new root. A woman who had discovered that the strongest thing in the world isn't iron or stone or the mountains that scraped the Montana sky. It's the human heart, battered, broken, scarred by loss, and still beating, still hoping, still choosing to love. The wagon disappeared over the ridge, carrying a family born from tragedy and rebuilt through courage. Behind them, the meadowlark sang. And somewhere in the vast Montana sky, 2 spirits watched their loved ones ride toward tomorrow, at peace, at last, their blessings trailing behind like ribbons in the wind. Sarah Porter Whitfield had saved a dying stranger from the snow. And in doing so, she had saved herself. That is the end of this story. But for Sarah, for Marcus, for 7 children who had survived the worst the world could offer, it was only the beginning. A beginning earned through suffering. A beginning sanctified by sacrifice. A beginning that proved once and for all that even the deepest winter must eventually yield to spring.